Welcome back to another episode on the Aaron Doughty podcast. My name is Aaron Doughty, and this episode was one that was actually a super profound thing in my life that as I started to become aware of this stored trauma in my body that I wasn't aware of. As I began to feel it and heal it, it opened up total new possibilities, totally new opportunities that I wasn't aware of. And I believe that this trauma that we hold in our body is either blocking love or it's blocking abundance. It's blocking different things from coming into our life. Or it's attracting things from coming into our life that reflect back that trauma back to us. Many of you know my story, the whole ex-stepmom thing, but I attracted someone in my life that always reflected back that pattern because of that trauma. So the trauma is in our body, and our body is our subconscious mind. That's going to be a lot of what this episode is about. It's understanding our body in relation to our subconscious mind, understanding that at certain points in our past, we store trauma there that maybe it's afraid for us to look at. I was spiritual bypassing this for a long time. I was like, I already dealt with this. I don't have to go through this again or look at this. But then I'm realizing now that there's this energy inside my body that as I begin to release, I feel more and more freed. In this episode, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing to release that stored trauma, how it's helping me to feel more free than ever, how it's making it easier for me to attract more abundance, more success, more love than ever before, because I'm letting down my barrier. I'm letting down this armor, this trauma that's been stored inside the body. And the more that I've released it, the more free that I feel. So there is a direct correlation between the abundance and the love that you attract into your life and how free you are of tension and trauma. And when you release tension and trauma, think about it too, you're more aligned. You're more aligned to your true, authentic self. And when you're more your true, authentic self, you have more magnetic energy than ever before. More opportunities come to you because you are magnetic. And that's exactly what this episode is about. It's how to release that trauma, my story around this, and how I've become aware of this in the past and how I've been releasing it now. I'm actually working with a coach on this, and I'll go a little bit more into that. But this really has to do with understanding the body is the subconscious mind. And when you release that, you become free. Now, speaking of the body and being in a high vibration, there are different things I do in my daily activities that help me to remain in a high vibe state. Being in high vibe is a lot about letting go of the past, letting go of forgiving, letting go of bad habits that maybe don't serve. That's part of it. And then wiring in. So letting go and wiring in. Now, I've been letting go with this trauma release exercises I've been doing that I'll talk more about in a little bit. But the other side of that is being aware of your own body in relation to energy. And there's things I do. I eat a healthy diet. One thing that I've been doing recently as well is every single day I drink something that's called Organifi. Organifi Green is what I use. It's a powder. It's a green powder that has many servings of vegetables inside of it. And it digests very well. It's organic. And I put it into a little bit of water. I drink it. And it gives me energy, helps me feel aligned, helps me feel like my body is strong. And I do that when I break my fast every day. It's important because I do intermittent fasting for me to break my fast with something healthy like that. So what I do is I do that. I do not drink coffee. Not that it makes me better than anybody, but I don't drink coffee. I don't smoke. The things that I do are things that have positive side effects. And the side effects of drinking Organifi Gold is that you feel amazing, high vibe state. You get your nutrients in for the day. And it's something that I'm a huge fan of. So many of you know that I use Organifi every single day. These podcasts are also sponsored by Organifi, so it's a win-win. I just got a new shipment of Organifi. I've got Organifi, the protein, which is like one of my favorite things, has enzymes in the protein so that it digests well, and it's very high-quality, complete protein. Best vegan protein I found. The greens and then the chocolate, it's called the Organifi Gold or Chocolate Gold. You drink that at night to get your sweet fix in, and that helps so that you sleep really good at night. It's got turmeric in it and other stuff too that's really good for the body. I sleep really good at night when I use it. At least that's what I've realized, and I'm a huge fan. So if you want 15% off of Organifi, all you got to do is go to Organifi, ORGANIFI.com/Aaron, AARON. You'll see a code to put at the top. You'll get 15% off of your order. Get the green, get the gold, get the protein. There's other stuff there as well. The immunity is good for having a strong immune system and stuff. But I'd say focus. Just trust me on this. The green and the protein is really good. And those are my two favorite things. And if you go to Organifi, ORGANIFI.com/Aaron, AARON, you can check it out there. So with that being said, I just wanted to share that with you. And we'll move into this episode right now. Welcome back to another episode on the Aaron Doughty podcast. My name's Aaron Doughty, and today I'm going to be talking to you about something that I honestly never really thought this was something that I would ever really focus on. And my hands are really yellow right now because I just got out of the cold plunge and my hands are super cold. I was looking at it. For those of you that don't know that are on the podcast, there's a second YouTube channel where I do the videos, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, whoa, my hands look so freaking yellow. But that's just because I got out of a cold plunge like 15 minutes ago, and it was 45 degrees actually. So this last week, my focus, first off, I got this kind of like a masculine coach in a way. It's this person that is like coaches my buddies Drew and Rebecca at the house. They're the ones I live with in Sedona. And it's like this high-level coach, and he talks a lot about masculine, feminine energy, but more specifically, his specialty is and relates to trauma, releasing trauma. And originally when I heard this, and I heard about trauma, and I heard about this whole idea, and one time I made a video with my buddy Drew. When I first met him, we made a video in San Diego. And when we were talking about raising our vibration, he talked about how every day he does these exercises, these trauma release exercises where he goes against a wall and he like shakes. Man, my hands are super yellow. I'm going to warm them up so I don't feel, so I feel like it's normal. So he'd do these trauma release exercises where he would like shake against like a wall or something like that. And he was shaking out the trauma in his body because Drew went through a lot of stuff growing up. Similar to my past in some ways, but I'd say his is definitely more intense. He went through a lot of abuse at like a very young age. And then him and his sister ran away when they were like very young. Or no, CPS came and got them, I think. But anyways, he had a lot of trauma in his body and he released it. And then he's like a totally different person now, is what he says. And that is like, I was like, trauma, well, my ex-stepmom didn't come into my life till I was about 7 years old. So I wasn't like a baby necessarily. And then from 7 to 16 years old, I had the physical, mental, and emotional abuse of the ex-stepmom. And when I went through my awakening in 2012, my idea behind it was, basically in 2012, what happened is I realized that the pain that I went through up until my dad divorced my ex-stepmom actually served me because it helped me to spiritually awakening. The pressure that was created like catapulted my spiritual awakening. So I was in a weird way grateful for it. And what happened was I forgave my ex-stepmom because also I realized that my ex-stepmom went through the same thing growing up with her dad. And that's why she became a narcissist. So I could see that she was also kind of in a way like in a lot of pain, and she was just acting that out. So what happened is I then forgave her, and then I let go of a lot of patterns in my life. Within 2 weeks of doing that, my old manager got fired, the manager that was just like my ex-stepmom, and it was because a similar pattern kept attracted in my life. There was always a woman in my life that was trying to control me, that was representing the same energy dynamic that I had with my ex-stepmom. And it first off was an ex-girlfriend when I was like 18, 19 years old for 4 years. I broke up with her, and then when I broke up with her, I got transferred to a better shoe department at Nordstrom's in women's shoes. And the manager of that department was the exact clone of my ex-stepmom. And she was in my life. We tried getting her fired, like going to HR and stuff, but it never really worked. So I went through a spiritual awakening, and then within 2 weeks, she got fired. Once I healed that energy inside of myself, she left my life. Because remember, all the outer reality is a reflection of the inner reality of what we believe we deserve and what our strongest beliefs are. And when I let that go, I was like, I started feeling like I went through a spiritual awakening. My whole entire life really transformed, but I didn't realize that, intellectually, mentally, I understand, I've healed. Emotionally, I'm not triggered by it anymore. I feel very free there. But the thing that I've been learning is that the body is the subconscious mind. The body is the subconscious mind. Sometimes I'll have certain things happen with my body. For example, my left toe, my left big toe. When I was moving years ago with my dad and my brother, helping them move, and there was this huge, like 800-pound pool table. It was on this little ledge inside a U-Haul. And we were pulling this pool table, and my dad told my brother to stop pulling it because I was on the other side of it. My brother kept pulling it, and when he pulled it, it bounced off this ledge, bounced off my foot, and then my toenail just popped, my big toe. And it was just super painful. Went to the hospital because I had to like put a shot in it. Even talk about it right now, I could feel that energy. And ever since then, that toenail doesn't grow back the same way. It kind of sucks. But nonetheless, I remember, what is that? Like, the body's a subconscious mind. Even actually at the time, I don't think I was really aware of that analogy, but the big toe represents the ego. And it made me very aware of certain shadow aspects of my ego at the time. And sometimes people may get like knee pain. Knee has to do with flexibility. I know my dad had hemorrhoids like 4 or 5 years ago. And when he did, I remember looking up the meaning from the book, You Can Heal Your Life or something like that, from Louis Hay. And it had to do with guilt. And I think that it was like subconscious guilt that my dad felt for maybe just my brother and I going through what we went through growing up and the ex-stepmom situation, and I think he felt guilty for letting it happen or not being as aware of it or whatever. And that manifests in the body. Now, when it comes to trauma, I just always kind of assume that I worked through all this stuff. I went through my awakening. I intellectually understand. I forgave my ex-stepmom. Why would I have to, what, trauma in my body? No, I'm pretty freely myself. I do what I love for a living. And there's like this spiritual ego, spiritual bypassing that comes in that is like, oh, I've done that. And this last 2 weeks, I've realized by doing these little exercises, and I'll explain a little bit more about them, that there's this shaking in my body that is releasing this tension, because when I was 7 to 16 years old, I wasn't allowed to really be myself. I wasn't allowed to really, I have very childlike, inner child mentality now. I joke around a lot. I have a very childlike sense of humor. And I think one of the reasons being is because from 7 to 16 years old, I didn't really have a childhood where I could really be myself. So now I do it now in my own way. And in that time, I don't watch that much TV. But when I first got out of that situation, because I wasn't allowed to have TV from 7 to 16 years old, all of a sudden, my dad divorces her. Then we're allowed to watch TV. We're allowed to play video games. Man, it changed so much. Freedom. I remember I went to that life transformation spa in Costa Rica 3 years ago for the first time. And when I went, the first night, I've told this story a couple times, but there was this opportunity to do this breath work, transformational breath work. And I was like, I guess I'll do this, because I was waiting for my buddy Victor to get there, because we were on different flights. And we were meeting in Costa Rica, and we were there, going to be there for a week. And what happened is I go into this breath workshop, and they tell us that all we're really going to do is breathe in a specific pattern for like 45 minutes. And he explains it in detail that when we're younger, we have like a certain breathing pattern. And then what happens is something happens in our life. We're told to shut up. We got to be a different way. We get disciplined. We get punished. We get we have to be somebody to be and receive love, and that changes our breathing pattern. A lot of times we'll go into fight or flight response. When we go into flight or flight, what happens is it changes our breathing pattern. It's like tenseness. And when that changes our breathing pattern, guess what? There's an intimate correlation between our breathing pattern and that of our emotions. So you'll notice that people that are very confident, they take very deep breaths. And then you go, whoa, they're very confident. You don't know it, but their breath is very contagious, and you just feel that confidence emanating from them, and it has to do with their breath. And in the same way, I did this breathing exercise for 40 minutes. There was about 30 of us in the room at the time. And after the breathing, like during it, this is what happened. My hands went like a praying mantis. Like they clenched up super tight. They went up to my chest like this. I'm laying on the floor doing this breathing exercise, and it's literally, you're just breathing in so much oxygen that it's crazy. And I'm doing this tense thing, and I could feel it. I remember just thinking, let go, let go, let go. And I then at the end of that, I saw like sacred, it was like a mandala, sacred geometry. It was literally like a psychedelic experience, and there was zero psychedelics, and it was just air, just breath. And I felt like I released a shit ton of energy. Literally, I felt it was like leaving my body. And afterwards, I felt so free. I was hungry as fuck. I remember that because I was on a flight going to Costa Rica, and it was like I fasted, and then I was going to eat at 6 at night, and the breath work was at 5. And I remember just being so hungry because of all that oxygen in my stomach. But I was also just like, I think the fastedness probably helped too. But I remember afterwards just being so mind blown. As hungry as I was, I had to stop and talk to some of the practitioners, because there were like 4 or 5 practitioners there that were like going around and adjusting people's breathing and like putting sandbags on certain parts of their stomach and stuff like that to deepen their breath and to get them remember to breathe from their diaphragm. And I asked one of the ladies, and she says, yeah, I mean, when you look at someone and their breathing pattern, you can tell their personality. And I said, really, what's my personality? Because she was the one that was like modifying me. She says, oh, you're an overachiever. You're somebody that when you were younger, you had to be somebody to be loved and accepted. And what you did is you built this armor. You have this armor, this shield of armor around your back and your chest that is protecting you. And that's why when you breathe in. At the very end, you do this big breath. So I go, and I kind of clench my back and breathe in a lot of oxygen. And she says, that's the armor that's around you. And in a way, there was a twisted benefit of that, because it made me want to be successful and like go in this direction. But the side effect of that is that I believe work has to be hard. I believe I'm not good enough already. I felt like there's this wall barrier around me that was protected, that was like in a way holding me back from really connecting to people in a very deep and vulnerable way, and also just enjoying life. It's an armor of seriousness. And that was a first experience with breathing and releasing trauma, releasing energy. Now, recently, I've been even more focused on releasing trauma. So that's kind of like a memory that I have that reminded me, like, hey, bro, I know you think that you've just got it all figured out and that you had your spiritual awakening and that's it. But there's always deeper levels to this stuff. And for me, that trauma was of releasing that. It was very powerful. But now I'm realizing this trauma I'm working through right now to completely release from my body. And from what I understand, it's just an ongoing thing. I remember I used to do a lot of Bikram yoga, and sometimes people would go into these positions like camel pose where you're just like bending completely backwards, and some people would get very emotional. They'd tear up, they'd cry, they'd grunt, they'd have this emotional release because they're opening up and releasing energy that's stored inside the body. Because remember, the body is the subconscious mind. That's why the book like You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay or whatever it's called, it's about like every different part of the body represents different emotions, and it has to do with that understanding of our connection with our own subconscious mind. So for me, I'm realizing, because when I do these exercises that I'll talk about in a minute, I get into these. It's kind of like yoga. It's parts of it. There's one called the bow, and it's what you do is you stand. I have a YouTube video that'll be coming out soon on this if it's not already out. And my feet are like shoulder width apart. I put my hands like in fists and behind my back, and then I lean back. And when I lean back, I open up my mouth completely, and what I do is I stick out my tongue. And here's the thing: when you stick out your tongue and you do this exercise, it's going to be very uncomfortable. And what you do is you do it for like a minute. And as you're doing it, you have this gagging that starts to happen. And what happens is there's energy that's stored in the throat of times you were told to shut up when you were a kid, and it clogged up the energy in the throat. And the challenge with that is that then that's going in and leaking into your expression out in the world. Maybe you're not able to completely express yourself because there's this energy that's just like clogged up in the throat chakra. When I do that exercise, the body can sometimes start to shake. What I do is I laugh hysterically. almost like the Joker laugh. It sounds crazy, but I laugh hysterically. And I think growing up, there was a lot of times I wanted to laugh at situations, but I'd get hit or in trouble if I did laugh at certain things. And I wasn't able to really just be my childlike self when I was a kid. So I think that laughing is my way of releasing. And sometimes a really good hearty laugh will almost sound like a cry. Like there's people that, you ever see someone that laughs so hard that they begin to cry? Or have you ever done that? I've done that before. It's almost like you're tearing up. But when I do that exercise, I could feel my body begin to shake. So it's like, oh, hey, there's still some, hey trauma. There's still some trauma stored in the body. And I've been feeling blocked. So let me get back to that guy that I'm now going to for coaching. And he's like a expert at trauma release and masculine energy. And basically, this is the way that it is explained, and this is how the trauma works. And there's a book on this too. I think it's called Waking the Tiger or something like that. And that I was recently reading as well. And basically, what it has to do with is trauma, understanding trauma. So this is the way it works. Trauma is something that we can look to nature to see how nature responds to trauma and to see the difference between how nature responds to trauma to how we respond to trauma. So for example, if you have a gazelle and a gazelle is being chased by a scary cheetah, and let's say the gazelle gets away. Let's say that there's like 3 gazelles being chased. One of them gets eaten. The other 2 get away. The other 2 gazelles go back to their herd. Now, before they go back into their herd, what they're going to do is they're going to spaz out. They're going to freak out, and they're going to start moving in this crazy manner. And it's going to look like they're going insane or something, but really what they're doing is they're releasing that traumatic energy that was built up, that stored energy that was built up inside of them. They release it before they go back into the herd because they don't want to they're so mindful and compassionate, they don't want to bring that trauma into the herd. But there's a group dynamic there, and they release that trauma before they go back in. Ducks. I remember hearing Eckhart Tolle talk about this. He would observe the ducks at the park. And what he would notice is that ducks would get into a little fight when they get territorial. And they get this little fight. They do this like weird little thing where they're attacking each other. And then what happens is one of the ducks separate when they're done with the fight. And what the ducks will do sometimes, or many times, is they will actually flap their wings in this way. And what they're doing is they're releasing excess tension that was built up during that fight. So naturally, animals know to release that tension before they go in. Now, not all animals do this, though. Look at the gazelle. Look at the ducks. They do that. They're smart as fuck. Now, here's the analogy that guy, the coach that I'm going to, he gave me. And by the way, he said, what do gazelles do? How does a gazelle cope with the trauma? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just had no idea. And he said that just the fact that I didn't know, I couldn't come up with, like, the answer I gave didn't have to do with going back into the herd and stuff like that. He said it said a lot about me. I think in some ways I very much am somebody that like does everything myself. I take a lot. I think in some ways, I've been a lone wolf. When I went through my awakening, not a lot of people understood me. Family and friends, some thought I went crazy. They didn't get it. And I kind of said, fuck it, and just went in my own world. I was like, I don't need anybody else. And I was powerful for the time, but I think it developed this thing where I feel separate from other people. And just by my answers when he was asking me questions about like what I thought the gazelle did, he could say, this tell me a lot about your subconscious, because this coach guy also studies a lot of Carl Jungian psychology, like Carl Jung, which has to do with the shadow work and stuff. And I had no idea gazelles went back into the herd, which means it has to do and is related to me and my sense of doing it all myself. Like the gazelles just do it all themselves. I just do it all myself. So releasing that energy is really the key before they go back into the herd. Now, here's the thing. Here's the difference. Say we have a rabbit. Cute little bunny rabbit. Oh, my God. So cute. So cute. Okay, so you have this cute little bunny rabbit. And the rabbits and bunnies, they are primed to notice hawks because they don't want to get caught by no hawk. So what they do is they are trained to see the shadow of a hawk. And when they see the shadow of the hawk, they know to boop, 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 just do their little zippy zip quick thing and go back to the rabbit hole. Let's say there's a rabbit and it's just chilling. And let's say it's enjoying the sunset. This rabbit loves the sunsets. And it's not paying attention to the shadows. Let's say a hawk comes down and grabs the ears of the rabbit and literally just grabs and tears off the ears of the rabbit. The rabbit then will not feel any pain because of the adrenaline that shoots through its system. But what it also does is the rabbit will not feel any pain. It will scat and run and bolt towards its rabbit hole. Now, when will the rabbit feel its pain? The rabbit will feel the pain once it goes back into the rabbit hole and it feels safe. It feels it's in comfort. So the difference between the gazelle and the rabbit is that the rabbit will go into the rabbit hole, go into the safety, into the comfort, in back home with all that it's heard, and then it will feel the pain. So it's bringing the trauma back in, whereas the gazelle will shake that shit off and then go back into the herd. There's a difference there. Now, in a way, what I've done and what many people who have stored trauma in their bodies done is they get a sense of safety from storing the trauma in the body and then not looking at it, not dealing with it. Spiritual bypassing. And the thing that I've had to learn how to do is how to become aware of this, because I believe that there's a level of what I am doing now is I'm removing layers that have kept me from really connecting to people at a very deep level because of this barrier of trauma. It's almost like when I'm around certain people, there's like this, the pattern association with trying to protect myself because of that traumatic experience. And me always justifying, even in my own business, I have a business, I have employees, and sometimes I'm like, I'm going to do this myself. I could do this myself. I could do it. It's like, no, I could have them do it. But there's like this mentality that I have where it's like, trust myself. I only can trust myself because I wasn't able to trust in the past because of the pain that I went through. So when we're talking about trauma, it gets stored in the body. And the key is to understand and realize and to feel the trauma. And there's these bioenergetic exercises that you can do. And one of them has to do with just jumping up and down and going bananas. Like literally just going bananas, like screaming. And another thing I was doing is sometimes in breathwork, you hear people just scream. When I do these exercises in my house, I bet you my neighbors hear me and they're like, what the hell's going on? I scream like sometimes with anger, sometimes with pain. Sometimes I'm just screaming to release energy because I know that energy was stored inside of my body. And when you talk about like the people pleaser mentality that I've been shedding this year, that I've let go of, I'd say like 80% of it, but there's still this little bit of seeking validation and approval and not being my complete, authentic, like unapologetic self. And that, I believe, is that patterned response of trauma. But when I release it, when I'm yelling, when I'm getting angry or allowed to feel these emotions, I'm like completing the pattern inside of my body and letting it be okay. One of the ways that people go about releasing this energy is by doing these exercises every day. And I have a YouTube video on it. So if you type in like Aaron Doughty trauma, that video should be out. What I'll do is I will prime it so that video comes out before this episode comes out so that you guys can refer to it. And if you guys go to aarondoughty.com/trauma, TRAUMA, I'll link, that's like a pretty link. So that link will redirect to the YouTube video. So aarondoughty.com/trauma, it'll go straight to that free YouTube video. And that video will show you some of the exercises that I've been doing. And there's two of them, but you actually see me do the exercise too, which is a little bit intense. But I just wanted to like show you, to give you guys permission to really go within yourself. I know anytime after I do these exercises, I just feel so loose. I feel so free, and my voice even sounds different. Like there's this constriction. There's times where my voice is very deep. I have like this. It's funny because I can tell that in like 5 years, my voice is going to be way deeper than it is now, because there's moments when I'm really relaxed, even after like a massage or something, and my voice is way deeper than it is now, and it's way more expressive. It's almost like I can express the full range of my voice. And it's much more dynamic, and it's much more grounded, and it sounds much more masculine. And what I can tell is that that's more authentic. It's more real, the real me, but there's a filter of like that trauma, that tension. And that's why it's either TRE, trauma release exercises, or tension release exercises. But either way, I'm releasing tension. And when you release tension, you feel free. Another thing I realized is I was been going to this body work guy in Sedona. He's like really, really good. And what he does is he said that when he looks at me, he can look at my body and just tell me where I'm holding tension, where that tension is in my body. And one thing that I realized is that there's tension almost in my eyes. Like the way that I look sometimes, I look very intently and very intensely into people. And I make very strong eye contact when I'm with people, just with the way I've always been. I remember when I was in Boy Scouts when I was a kid, they were doing this exercises, and they told my dad, said he's got very good eye contact. I always remembered that. But the way my eyes look is my eyes are actually so intense that it's almost like my eyes are in fight or flight. Like your body's your subconscious mind. And when you can I remember when I used to smoke a lot of weed, my eyes would very much relax. And they'd be, of course, your eyes are more dim. Your eyes are more dim, and you're just kind of like, it's different. But what I'm learning to do is to relax more, to relax my facial muscles more. When I'm really expressing my face, I'm really expressing dynamically, and it's more engaging for a lot of times for people to watch. But you notice that sometimes people that have very like monotone emotion, they'll also have very small, if any, facial movement. So it's almost like their face is always the same. And a lot of that is trauma. A lot of that is tension from growing up, from saying, hey, don't be that way. Don't express yourself. Don't be like this. And the key is like being aware that it's okay if your eyebrows move. It's okay if your eyes get small and big. You smile and you have facial expressions. You got these little crow's feet in your eyes. It's all good. It's all good, bro. And it's like expressing yourself more, doing these trauma release exercises, you begin to become loose. And a part of the healing too is like almost reenacting the past in a way, not feeling it. It's almost like in the past it was felt and then it was bypassed and not really felt. And when you actually go into it and you let it be okay that the feeling comes up of whatever the trauma was, and you give it like a new meaning in a way as well. That's the intellectual and mental thing, though, and that's why it's important to become aware as well as the body aspect of it, because feeling it is healing. That's the one thing I've learned about all healing is like the more I feel, the more I heal. So the way that I go about this trauma releasing is I do these little bioenergetic exercises. You can go to that video, aarondoughty.com/trauma, to watch that YouTube video. And I do these exercises, and the other one I do is I just go bananas, and I start screaming, I start yelling, I'm laughing a lot. And as I do, I'm releasing that energy. And then I'm knowing it's safe now. It's safe. I don't have to be afraid anymore. I can be myself. I can just let loose. I can relax. And as I let go of that trauma, I feel more like I penetrate people at a deeper level, and I can also feel people at a deeper level. I felt like even like that I've been talking about the beliefs, changing my beliefs about women, changing my beliefs around dating. And as I do, I feel like I can connect to people at a much deeper level. And a lot of that block, so I think, could be that trauma. Especially think about it, the trauma that I experienced from an ex-stepmom who is a female, even though she had very masculine energy. It's like I associate and maybe get that tenseness gets activated when I'm around and dating. And it's a subconscious thing. I'm not aware of it. I'm like, oh, of course I want to be around this person or whatever. But emotionally, or not emotionally, physically, I can feel that tension and not be aware of it. So the releasing that I'm doing has made it so I've been able to get so much closer to people. I'm able to also just realize that as I release that energy, I'm becoming more of my authentic self. I'm becoming more expressive. I'm relaxing more. I'm enjoying life more. And I'm able to let my inner child come out. That's the one thing that I think releasing the trauma has really helped me do, is become more like my inner child. Is developing a relationship with my own inner child, loving my own inner child, nurturing my own inner child. And that's really the healing, is like releasing it from the body, feeling it and healing it, And knowing that as I do that, it changes everything. So, anyways, this is the episode on trauma. If you guys want me to do another one, let me know. If you guys like this episode or you think it could help other people that are maybe feeling trauma or they feel blocked in their life, or, because this also is directly related to love, attracting abundance, the energy, our energy. And if our energy is free flowing and aligned, it's much easier to do. It's much more magnetic. But if we're constricted, we're not being our true selves, then guess what? That has a powerful effect on who we are being. So anyways, if you guys like this episode, could you do me a favor and could you review the podcast if you haven't already on iTunes? And if you don't have an iPhone, maybe borrow a friend's iPhone or something and review it. It really helps the podcast grow. Other than that, new episodes every Tuesday, Friday. There's the iTunes, Spotify is the podcast. Mainly it's where it is. And then also the second YouTube channel, if you guys haven't checked it out already, Aaron Doughty Podcast. And other than that, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace, much love, and namaste.